By the mid-1300s, China's Mongol Yuan Dynasty was coming to an end. The Mongols had ruled China for more than 150 years, but the reigns of the later Yuan emperors were short and marked by intrigue and rivalry. Famine, plague, and the suppression of the Han Chinese led to a series of peasant rebellions that openly challenged the rule of the emperor. The Mongol dynasty began to splinter as they found themselves fighting rebel warlords across China. By 1351, the Red Turban Rebellion grew into a full-scale nationwide uprising. China was in complete chaos. What was once a unified country was now fragmented and fractured. During this turbulent time, Jiangxi was the border between two great powers, and Nanchang became the battleground between two formidable rebels, Zhu Yuanzhang, the Duke of Wu, and a rival warlord, Chen Youliang, the Emperor of the Great Han. The epic battle that ultimately led to the fall of the Yuan Dynasty, the Battle of Lake Poyang, took place on the outskirts of Nanchang, on the largest freshwater lake in China, over a period of several weeks in the autumn of 1363. Nanchang was the key to the vital Jiangxi region. By taking the city, Chen Youliang could gain a foothold in the Duke of Wu's territory and begin to establish his dominance over his other rivals. To do so, Chen launched a fleet with 300,000 soldiers, sailors, and marines on board tower ships designed for depositing soldiers on riverside city walls. His ultimate purpose? The capturing of Nanchang with a major amphibious assault. The Great Han fleet sailed from the Yangtze River and into Lake Poyang. It then continued south to the city at the mouth of the Gan River. The ships of the fleet were huge, with the largest tower ships capable of carrying between 2,000 and 3,000 men each, featuring multiple decks, watertight hatches, specific holding areas for cavalry horses, and elaborate armored superstructures. Chen had already launched a successful attack using similar amphibious tactics with his fleet. In his assault on Taiping, his tower ships sailed their armored hulls directly up to the walls of the city. Chen Marines scaled the walls directly from the vessels and, using the element of surprise, stormed and took the city without the need of a long and costly siege. Chen planned to descend on Nanchang in a similar fashion, taking the city with a massive amphibious assault. The garrison at Nanchang, however, knew of Chen's previous victory and had labored to move their walls back from the shoreline and build them higher, limiting the advantage of the tower ships. As the Great Han fleet began their assault, the Nanchang garrison successfully defended the city walls. The fighting was vicious and deadly, and the siege continued for 2 months. A small boat, however, managed to make its way out of the city and through the enemy lines, and got word to the Duke of Wu that Nanchang was under attack. The Duke gathered his troops and sailed up the Yangtze. He commanded a force estimated at 100,000 men on board nearly 1,000 ships, but it was still significantly outnumbered by the Great Han forces. On receiving intelligence of Zhu's advance, Chen raised the siege of Nanchang. He embarked his forces and set sail down the Gan River to re-enter the lake. With a force that was far superior in size and numbers, Chen was looking for a decisive sea battle. On the 30th of August, 1363, the two fleets engaged in battle on the lake. The Great Han tower ships were limited by the shallow water levels from a summer drought. The Duke's fleet, with its smaller ships, attempted to use this advantage to even the odds. But the huge armored tower ships proved unbeatable on the first day of battle. Sailing in close formation, with smaller picket ships surrounding the larger vessels, they easily repulsed all enemy assaults. Chen kept his fleet relatively stationary, allowing the enemy to batter themselves against his superior ships. Zhu Yuanzhang's own flagship ran aground as his fleet attempted to swarm the larger enemy ships. But as the Great Han closed on the stranded ship, the wake created by the battling vessels freed her from the shoals, and the smaller, faster ship managed to slip away. On the second day, Zhu Yuanzhang launched a fire ship attack. Small blazing unmanned vessels packed with gunpowder were set adrift toward the tower ships. The Great Han could not escape their path. Small ships could easily move to avoid the unmanned assault, but the huge tower ships could not. Unable to move, more than 100 vessels were sunk, while 60,000 Great Han were killed. Surrounded by the screams of the burning and drowning, the Duke's sailors stormed onto the flaming ships and easily finished off what the fire ships started. The Duke's relief army, meanwhile, swept overland to the rescue of Nanchang and quickly routed the Great Han forces that have been left behind. After a final but indecisive day of battle on the lake, Zhu Yuanzhang pulled back from the still superior Han forces and set sail towards the Yangtze River. He hoped to bottle up and destroy the enemy in one final battle. The Great Han were trapped. Any attempt to break out and retreat home required not only the defeat of the Duke's ground forces, but also another engagement with their fleet. For reasons unknown, Chen hesitated. Only a month later, with his supplies dwindling and the fleet on the verge of starvation, Chen initiated his breakout attempt. The Great Han fleet fought its way through Lake Poyang, winning pitched cannon duels with the garrisons on the shore. When the fleet finally reached the Yangtze River, Zhu and his fleet were waiting for them. Zhu Yuanzhang's fleet launched another deadly fire ship attack. Chen's ships tried to dodge the first wave, and in the confusion that followed, the ships of Zhu's fleet descended on the Great Han. The two engaged in a fierce battle, ships locked together and sailors and marines grappling and boarding each other's vessels. As the Great Han struggled to break away, archers unleashed a deadly volley on the enemy flagship. An arrow pierced Chen Youliang in the eye, killing him instantly. From the death of Chen Youliang, alongside two of his brothers, and the capture of the crown prince, all in a single battle, the Great Han never recovered. The victory of this naval battle, arguably the largest in human history, with a reported 850,000 sailors and soldiers involved, cemented Zhu Yuanzhang's position as the leading rebel warlord. He would finally drive the Yuan Dynasty, established by Kublai Khan, out of Beijing. When this happened, 5 years later, Zhu Yuanzhang became the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty, bringing China under ethnic Han rule once again.
我听不懂那个地方话。